New tonight, a dismembered body found in a barrel. We're now learning more about the man police say put the victim in there.
A contractor for public works found an abandoned barrel, and when he opened the lid to see if it contained any hazardous materials, he was hit by the stench of decomposing flesh.
You have to have this magnetism that attracts these other alpha males, these killers, these creme de la creme of California criminal society. You have to attract them.
Rene Enriquez Jr. was a 39-year-old man who lost his life while exploring the famous city of Las Vegas, except it wasn't that simple. In the beginning, authorities thought Enriquez was an innocent man who got caught up with the wrong people, resulting in his brutal murder. However, the homicide case quickly became a mystery, revealing layer after layer of the story. Everything came crashing down even further when it was discovered that the victim came from a long line of a Mexican mafia family. So, was this an extreme case of gang rivalry or an act of revenge? And what role did Rene Enriquez Jr. play in it? Let's find out.
A contractor for public works found an abandoned barrel, and when he opened the lid to see if it contained any hazardous materials, he was hit by the stench of decomposing flesh.
In November 2022, authorities discovered the remains of a missing man in a barrel near the area of Palm Street and Quail Avenue in the southeast Las Vegas Valley, to be precise. The body was identified to belong to Rene Enriquez Jr., and officials believed he was killed at least a month before his remains were discovered. The case became extremely conflicted because officials didn't have a lead about whether this man was involved in any shady business, a kidnapping for ransom deal, or a person out there was randomly taking people's lives. Eventually, law enforcement officials arrested Ryan Bentley, a 43-year-old man who they suspected was responsible for the death of Enriquez. It turned out the two men used to be friends and were involved in other criminal activities together. Officials were able to uncover Bentley's phone calls and Facebook messages where he mentioned his purchases of weapons and bleaches. Later, it was revealed that Bentley wasn't the only one who participated in the gruesome murder of Enriquez. There were at least two other people who witnessed the victim's last moments.
Lye, of course, is a chemical used in decomposition. Bentley is due in court on that charge later this month, and due to that murder charge, a judge is holding him without any bail.
On that fateful day, Bentley reached out and invited Enriquez to his home under friendly disguise. But in reality, he actually wanted to lure the 39-year-old to his home to take his life. He even offered Enriquez two options to choose from. Either the younger man takes a large amount of fentanyl and allow himself to die due to an overdose, or Bentley would take his life using a firearm. Enriquez ended up choosing the fentanyl option, which made him unconscious, but somehow he remained alive. Therefore, Bentley used his firearm to finish the job. He killed his former friend and disposed of his body in the most barbaric way. But why did Bentley and his friends decide they needed to take Enriquez's life? What was the purpose?
A second suspect, Angelica Hudson, was also charged with the murder, but the state has since dropped those charges. Right now, Bentley is facing murder charges as well as conspiracy to commit murder charges. Police say that Bentley believed that the victim was a snitch and had told police about his drug business.
Law enforcement officials started digging deeper into the story, and it turned out that Enriquez had been involved in narcotics business. The chances were he was dealing with a small amount of narcotics. It was reported that on October 22, 2022, Enriquez's home was raided by the authorities, and they located a good amount of methamphetamine and fentanyl. These narcotics were seized from the home, and Enriquez became the subject of a legal investigation. However, for some reason, his friends and family believed that Enriquez had cooperated with the authorities and gotten himself a lesser charge. In simple terms, it means that they believe Enriquez had provided officials with information about the other narcotic dealers, and he was labeled a snitch. As a person on the inside, you don't want this title because being called a snitch means that your life is in danger. People who cooperate with law enforcement officials and authorities are usually placed under witness protection because the price they will pay for betraying other criminals is extremely deadly. Still, officials have confirmed that Enriquez was not working with them or provided them with any criminal-related information, so the assumption that he was a snitch was false. And maybe that was the end of the story, or at least that's how the authorities wanted to end the story. It was all a misunderstanding. Enriquez was just a man who got caught up with the wrong people, chose a dangerous profession, and suffered a horrible death. It would make a great story on the news. However, there were people out there who didn't want the story to end so soon, especially not after they found some crucial information about Enriquez's background. Apparently, Rene Enriquez Jr. had quite an interesting background that was linked to the Mexican mafia. Yes, it sounds insane, but it's true. What's even more interesting is that his father, Rene Enriquez, famously known as Boxer, was a notorious mob boss in the 1980s and 1990s.
They have this magnetism that attracts these other alpha males, these killers, these creme de la creme of California criminal society. You have to attract them.
You might find Boxer's name familiar because this man had made quite a name for himself on national news. This man was no joke. He had committed a vast amount of crimes and outsmarted the legal system many times. I know what you are thinking. Could the death of his son be related to Boxer's history? The answer is maybe, because there is no evidence leading to the doorstep of the Mexican mafia. But what are the likelihoods that this case is a coincidence? Growing up, Boxer was raised in a middle-class family in Cerritos, California. His parents were immigrants, so you could say they came to the US to seek the American dream, and they were successful too. Unfortunately, Boxer chose a different life for himself. It was said that Boxer was an intelligent kid, and if he had taken his studies more seriously, he would have had a promising life. Yet, he wasn't interested in academics. Boxer decided to drop out of school in the 9th grade to pursue an early criminal career, joining street gangs and committing small misdemeanors. He idolized his older brother, who had also dropped out of school to become a gang member of the Artesia 13 Arta 13 gang. The name Boxer was also given to him by his brother. At the age of 12, Boxer began his life on the street, and with his brother's help, he was able to earn himself a place within the Artesia 13 Arta 13 gang. The initiation process was simple but brutal. The gang members had taken the 12-year-old to a nearby gas station, and each member took a turn the young man until they felt satisfied. This process is a symbol of the blood you must shed for the gang, which might sound ridiculous to the rest of us, but is a norm for people in the organized crime world. After the cruel initiation process, Boxer was officially a part of a criminal organization, but that still didn't satisfy him. He wanted to be recognized as something more, but what exactly is more? Are there levels of advancement within an organized crime group? Why, yes, there is. It was Boxer's dream to be incarcerated because that's where the height of organized crime remains. You might think that prison is a place run by authorities and the federal government, but in reality, it's a place plagued by criminal groups and gangs. Therefore, it's almost every gang member's dream to be within the system because that's where the true power lies. So Boxer did everything he could to get incarcerated, including armed robberies, breaking into people's homes, and many more charges. Keep in mind that he was only in his late teens when he committed all of these offenses. Of course, he got his wish in the end. Boxer landed himself in the Dual Vocational Institution, a state prison in California, and this was where he encountered the La-E-Me prison gang and became one of their top hitmen. If you haven't heard about the La-E-Me gang, they are probably the most notorious and well-known prison gang in the United States. They're basically the Mexican mafia. La-E-Me, or the Mexican Mafia, stands as one of the most secretive criminal organizations in the country, with its roots deeply embedded within the California prison system. The gang was formed in the late 1950s, and it emerged as a response to the need for protection among Hispanic American inmates, evolving into a highly organized and influential group with significant influence both inside and outside prison walls.
Hardcore individuals, say maybe 50,000. Soldados, which are soldiers. But the group is small. The Mexican Mafia is small in itself. I mean, it has vast influence. And that's in California. We're not considering Arizona. We're not considering the Hawaii faction. We're not considering the federal faction.
What makes the Mexican Mafia special is distinguished by its hierarchical structure, with influential leaders known as carnals at the top. This strict hierarchy ensures a disciplined chain of command, and the gang's influence extends far beyond the prison environment, infiltrating various communities and establishing a daunting presence in the broader criminal underworld. What sets La-E-Me apart is not just its criminal activities, but also its strict code of conduct. The organization had a set of 10 commandments or rules that govern the behavior of its members. These rules, known for their severity, contribute to the organization's disciplined and secretive nature. These rules might sound bizarre or probably even insane, but each member of the gang is bound by these laws as if it's their second nature. It's how the organization maintains structure and influence. The first rule, respect your fellow M, highlights the importance of loyalty and mutual respect among members. This principle forms the foundation of La-E-Me's internal unity, fostering a sense of brotherhood that strengthens the organization. Calm in the storm, the second rule emphasizes the need for composure and discipline, even in the face of adversity. This rule reflects the gang's commitment to maintaining control and strategic thinking, qualities essential for its survival and success. The third rule, Face the consequences of your actions reinforces a sense of accountability among members. Accepting responsibility for one's actions is paramount within stench, creating an environment where individuals understand the repercussions of their decisions. So, let's say a member did something wrong. They'll have to step up and accept the punishment, which I imagine won't be a piece of cake. The fourth rule, no homosexuality, imposes a strict prohibition on gay relationships. This rule reflects the gang's adherence to traditional values and a machismo, better known as patriarchy, culture, reinforcing a sense of masculinity within the organization. Maintaining secretiveness is a foundation of stench's operations, as reflected in the fifth rule, maintain secrecy. Members are obligated to keep the organization's activities and the identities of its members confidential, contributing to the mysteriousness of the gang and the fact that people could die if their identities aren't secure. The sixth rule, no cowardice or betrayal, emphasizes the severity with which betrayal is regarded within the organization. Members are expected to display courage and unwavering loyalty, with any act of betrayal met with severe consequences. Basically, if you run away from a fight, you're deemed a coward, and the gang members will take your life. Handling conflicts with a level-headed approach is advocated by the seventh rule, handle business like a man. This rule encourages members to address disputes directly and without unnecessary violence, promoting a strategic and calculated approach to conflict resolution. The eighth rule, don't use drugs, prohibits narcotics use among members. They're allowed to handle it, but not use it on themselves. This restriction aims to maintain the clarity of mind and focus necessary for effective decision-making and execution of the gang's activities. Follow orders. The ninth rule requires that members unquestionably obey the orders of higher-ranking individuals. This rule reinforces the strict hierarchy within stench and ensures a disciplined and organized approach to the gang's operations. The final rule, educate yourself, encourages continual self-improvement among members. This encompasses both intellectual and practical education, reinforcing the idea that knowledge is a valuable asset within the organization. These 10 rules provide a glimpse into the disciplined and controlled world of stench, the organization's blend of hierarchical structure, secretive operations, and strict code of conduct has contributed to its enduring influence and notoriety in the realm of organized crime. As you can see, stench is run like a business of some sort. A very shady business, but a business nonetheless. They're not just any criminal group. They're an organized group that knows exactly what they're doing. And for Boxer to ascend the ranks so rapidly, he must have been an excellent hitman.
In our society, the more people we kill, we advance. The more things we do for the Mexican Mafia, we advance. We gain our social status.
By 1985, Boxer became a full-fledged member of stench and made a massive contribution to the gang. He earned himself the handprint tattoo, the ultimate symbol of stench. He took out many targeted inmates within the prison system and was probably one of the deadliest men residing behind bars during that time.
Mexican Mafia adopted this symbol as its own from La Cosa Nostra, which was known as the Combination at the time. As it was explained to me by my padrino, the Combination was a group working the Fulton Fish Market and Longshoremen in New York. They worked these areas and they would steal merchandise, crates and barrels, and their hands were dirty when they would handle these pieces of merchandise. Unbeknownst to these individuals, their impression or the imprint of dirt or grease on their hands would be left on the merchandise.
In 1989, the man was released on parole and he immediately returned to his street crimes, but this time extorting taxes from other criminal groups on territories assigned to him by the Mexican Mafia. During this time, Boxer committed 2 other homicides. The first one was a contract placed on a narcotic dealer, Cynthia Gavaldon, who was said to not have paid her street tax on time. The other was a fellow member of the gang who was accused of running away in a fight, violating rule number 6 of the organization, no cowardice or betrayal. Boxer gave the man an overdose and took his life with a firearm, which if you remember from the beginning, this method sounds very similar. It's the same method that was used on Boxer's son, Rene Enriquez Jr. Another coincidence, I guess. Boxer was eventually arrested for Cynthia Gavaldon's murder and received a life sentence in prison. However, that was not the end of his criminal career. Far from it, actually. While in prison, the Mafia placed another contract on one of their fellow high-ranking members, Salvador Monbuenrostro, and it was up to Boxer to end this man's life. This was the case that made Boxer famous nationwide, because not only did he take Buenrostro's life in broad daylight, but he did it in a lawyer's interview room surrounded by at least a dozen law enforcement officials. The entire thing was captured on camera. Boxer managed to slip out of his handcuffs, crafted his weapon, and killed a man in a public setting. More than 10 uniformed officers witnessed Boxer take a man's life and couldn't do anything about it. Until this day, no one could believe how this man even managed to pull such a stunt. The more surprising thing was that Buenrostro actually survived the incident.
Handcuffs numerous times to do us in custody. We had the Buenrostro hit in the attorney room, which is a pretty big hit. Me and Benny Peters slipped our cuffs, extracted knives from our shoes, and got in front of about 50 cops.
Boxer was returned to prison, of course, but not just any prison. He was transferred to Pelican Bay State Prison, the most secure prison in the world, in 1993. The mafia boss was locked up in a highly secure unit called SHU, where inmates were locked up 23 hours a day and never got to see the outside world. Many notorious mobsters and mafia bosses are transferred to this secure prison system to make sure they never escape. Still, it didn't stop Boxer and other fellow gang members from communicating. They actually created an entire need coding system to communicate with one another while being isolated at Pelican Bay. Their work never stopped, even if they're locked up in one of the most secure prison systems in the world. The level of efficiency and intelligence these men possess was just out of this world.
I had a visitor, and I told the visitor, hey, how's Joe doing? Joe's doing fine. Yeah? Why don't you ask Berta to go over there and see him and make sure she talks to him for me. Give him my very best. Okay, to you, it sounds like Berta's going to go over there and give him regards. But to me, I've just authorized a hit against this individual. And in any court of law, it can't be proven. Because it sounds so generic.
Finally, in 2003, Boxer decided to leave the mafia for good because he became disenchanted with the gang. As newer members were accepted into the organization, their commodity started changing in ways he didn't like. There were too many internal conflicts, and they had members violating multiple rules of l'AME. Boxer felt like the mafia was changing to become something he didn't want to be a part of anymore. Therefore, he decided to leave, which also was a violation of the Mexican mafia. Once you're a member of the gang, there's no such thing as leaving. The only way out was death. If someone leaves the mafia, it's considered a betrayal. Boxer went from a hitman to a traitor, so he decided to cooperate with the authorities and provide them with valuable information in exchange of protection. Over the years, Boxer helped federal authorities bring down multiple Mexican mafia members and served as a witness to all their crimes. The former crime boss was considered an important asset to the US government, so they were willing to protect him at all costs. He even had at least 11 federal and state law enforcement agencies writing letters to the state parole board to attest to his valuable contribution in the last 2 decades. However, the man was denied parole 4 times, which was probably for the best. There's no doubt that Boxer would have been safer in prison than anywhere else, considering his name has been on the Mexican mafia hit list since 2003. Yet in July 2022, Boxer was granted parole and was placed in the Witness Protection Program. Barely 4 months after his release, his son's life was brutally taken. It may or may not be the work of the Mexican mafia, but what are the chances? A popular theory would be the gang members couldn't get to Boxer even after he was released, so they targeted his family. The government managed to protect the former crime boss, but not his family. Still, that remains speculation. There's no actual proof that they did it. Maybe this was the price of being involved in street and organized crime. You can say that Boxer was lucky to earn himself a life sentence in the first place, instead of being taken out by other members of the mafia. Whatever happens after his release is left to fate to decide. Do you think Rene Enriquez Jr.'s death had anything to do with the Mexican mafia? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications.